Skepticism that Jesus will return to this earth is nothing new. Jesus lived on this earth for about 33.5 years, and when he ascended to heaven, angels explained that he would return in the same manner in which he left.
And when he had said these things, as they were looking on, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. And while they were gazing into heaven as he went, behold, 2 men stood by them in white robes, and said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into heaven? This Jesus, who was taken up from you into heaven, will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven.
As we enter into 2025, we realize we live in an increasingly dangerous world. Evil men and women want to enslave all of us under a one-world government. There are wars, rumors of wars, and rumors about rumors of wars, and the persecution of people of the Christian faith is intensifying worldwide. So the natural question on the mind of most people is, for how long will this go on? More importantly, when will Jesus return? These are the kinds of questions we want to address in this series. We call it a countdown, not because we have some secret end-time clock, but because we are looking at God's kairos meter. And what is a kairos meter? We'll tell you about that in this episode. First-century Christians believed that Jesus would return at any moment. This was largely because Jesus told them that he himself did not know the date of his return. Only the Father knew. It was also because of the many parables Jesus told them about being ready, for example the parable of the 10 virgins. So, for the early Christians, every day was in essence the last days. Of course, this was somewhat of a quote-unquote good misunderstanding, because they did not quite comprehend what Jesus had taught in Matthew chapter 24, which is Jesus' longest prophetic statement about the end times, while on earth. We must remember that the early church did not have the benefit of a written Bible, such as we do, let alone a New Testament, from which to study Jesus' prophetic words. They had the oral teachings and revelations of apostles like Peter and John. The Apostle Peter was being prophetic, therefore, when he spoke of those who would ridicule the idea of Jesus' return in the last days. According to Peter, here is what they will be saying.
Where is this coming he promised? Ever since our ancestors died, everything goes on as it has since the beginning of creation. 2 Peter 3 verse 4 NIV.
Now, Peter was speaking to a Jewish audience, hence the expression, ever since our ancestors died. This lets us know that most of this scoffing will probably come from those Jews who do not believe that the individual who came over 2,000 years ago was the promised Messiah. Some of those individuals would still be looking for the Jesus who would literally come to reign on David's throne in Israel. Up to this day in 2025, there are still Jews who do not believe that Jesus, or Yeshua, was the promised Messiah. But thankfully, that is slowly changing. All of this prompted the Apostle Peter to write the following response in advance to us who are alive today.
But do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. 2 Peter 3 verses 8 to 9 NIV.
You cannot expect a being who dwells in eternity to think about time in the same way as we mortals who have a limited lifespan. That makes no sense whatsoever. In the Greek language, from which much of the New Testament was translated, there are 2 words generally translated as time. One word is chronos, and the other is kairos. Chronos is the word from which we get terms such as chronology and chronometer. A chronometer is a special watch that measures time in hours, minutes, and seconds very accurately. It is chronos time that we are all thinking about when we try to predict the date of Jesus' return. The second word, kairos, does not mean time in hours, minutes, etc. According to Strong's Bible Dictionary, it means fitting season, opportunity, or occasion. In Luke 1 verse 20, the angel told Zacharias that he would be dumb until the event occurred because he did not believe the angelic message that his wife Elizabeth would bear a son. In his statement, the angel used a version of the word kairos, which is translated as the appointed time in the passage. Notice that the angel did not give a year or a date for this event because it was going to occur in God's time. Kairos, not chronos, is God's time because it reflects His sovereign will and choice. Similarly, when speaking of the birth of Jesus in Galatians chapter 4, verse 4, the expression the fullness of time is used. Note that a derivative of chronos is used here, but it is the phrase fullness of that tells us that this is still kairos time. That is, a fitting season, opportunity, or occasion. If we study Jesus' major prophecy in Matthew 24, we can now understand why He is giving us signs and events rather than dates as a means of tracking His return. In other words, signs and events are God's kairos meter, and that is what we should be studying and relying on. But which return of Jesus are we talking about? Is there more than one return? We'll look at this in more detail in the next episode.